Okay, I did take a quick break because I like to review the video that I've done so far to see if I made any mistakes or anything, and it turns out I did. So what happened is you can see this text guess button text box. If I go back to the designer, is it that one? Nope, sorry, it's this guy. So the text guess, I put it in as a text area, and actually it doesn't respond quite the way I want it to, and I'll show you real quick what it does do. Back to the code, hit run. So now you can see it shows the button, it shows the text box and the label, and notice that the play again button is not visible, which is what we had set it to be. So one thing here, this is how I realized that it was a text area and not a text field, is if I can type in a guess and hit number, if I hit enter, it just goes to the next line, which I don't want. When I hit enter, I want it to submit the number that I put in there as a potential guess. And this does not do that. I can keep hitting enter and it keeps going down. I can type more here, enter, enter, blah, blah, blah. And hit backspace to delete it all. Doesn't matter. The point is, it doesn't work the way I had intended, because I created it as a text area and not a text field, which is a very important distinction. So I'm going to close that. And I am going to give it the same name. So this code here, which you'll notice, this has changed to action. Previously, it was a text changed method, which is why it wasn't working. And I saw that, and I was really confused by it. And then I realized that I had put the wrong type of field in there. So let's go back to the designer, and we're going to say goodbye to the text area, and we're going to add a text field, which is right below it. So text field. We'll put this up here, line it up. Just for the sake of being even with this, we'll make it that long. And we are going to give it the same name, so txt guess. Yep. And just hit enter. And when I do that, you notice the event name changes, so that will match. And now, because technically this is a different object, I do need to declare it again. So I'm going to right click on it, go down to generate, and I'm going to dimension this as a text field, because before it was an area, and you'll see it's still going to be there when we go back, but I'm going to do it as a text area. Right click again, and this time we now have action, which is what is the method that this object has that is actually going to work, and it's not going to let me enter more than one value. I'm going to hit action, and then go back to the code, and now you can see that a text field has been added. And I had deleted the text area, so it looks like it went ahead and deleted that from the code as well, that's great, so that works. But the text guess action was already there, so it didn't create it again so much as it just recognizes this now as part of that text field code. All right, so under action, you may also notice that I added this line here, text guess.select all. And now that it is a text field, you'll see what I mean by that. So if I run it, okay, so now it's a text field, and I can type a number in. If I hit enter, it's not going to go down to the next line, but because I did write the code that says select all, anytime I hit enter on this now, it's going to run any code that's in there. It's going to run the submit guess routine, and then it's going to select all of the text that's in this field. So I hit enter, you'll see that nothing happened because we don't have any code in the submit guess subroutine yet, but it did select all the text that's in there. And I found that the reason for doing that, because if I didn't and I hit enter, it's just going to sit there like this, and then I have to backspace it and put in a new number in or whatever. So if I hit enter and it selects it automatically, now I can just type in my next guess, hit enter, and it selects it automatically and overwrites anything I type in there. So I just felt that that was a better thing to do. So that's why I did that. All right, so now since we kind of have the start game routine all set here, we know that if we click the button, it's going to submit our guess, and if we hit enter on the text field, it's also going to submit our guess. So it makes sense that, you know what, actually, I was going to do the submit guess code, which is the most involved part of the code that we have. But I think what we should do is in the play again button, since we know that we're starting over from scratch, and all we have to do is run the start game routine, same as we do when the code first starts. The app start is when this runs the first time you run your program. So it's gonna do all this main setup stuff, and then it's gonna run the start game routine, which sets the whole game up to go. And when we hit play again, we want it to do the exact same thing. So we're just gonna put start game in there. And now when that button shows up and you click it, it's gonna run this code. It's gonna clear everything out, select a new random number, and you're good to go for a second round, or however many you do. All right, so that's pretty much all the code except for what happens when you actually submit your guess. So that's what we're gonna do now. One of the first things we need to do is, because we know that the number being submitted, or the value, whatever happens to be in the text field, is going to be submitted to this routine. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that what is being submitted is actually a number. We're going to use the if command, because if, meaning we're checking for a condition. So if, now I'm going to do this wrong first and then I'll fix it to show you what I mean. If text get, hello, text guess, oh, okay, yep, it did that already. Text guess, text, and we have no way to determine whether that's a number or not. If I'm just checking for a condition of the text equals what? I mean, there's a number of things it could possibly be, but I need to check to see if it's actually a number. So I'm not going to check if it's equal to anything, but I am going to check is number. And then I'm going to put text. I'm going to put the text guess.text field in parentheses, and now it's going to check to see if the text is actually a number. So if text guess text is a number, then we're going to go ahead and run everything in between here. So when you have if, there's basically at least 3 commands that need to be part of this if statement. So you have the if, then you have then. As soon as I hit enter on that, it's going to put the end if at the end of it. So that's the very minimal code that is needed to check for a condition. So if, then, end if. There are a couple other scenarios where we would need an additional command in here called else, or else if. You can check for multiple conditions if you want. In this case, we're just going to check to see if the text that was provided is a number. So basically it says if it is a number, then I'm going to run this code. And now we're going to put in the code. Now there's other conditions that we also have to check for. We have to make sure that the number that is submitted is within the range that we've given it. In this case, 1 and 100. So we'll do another if statement, and I'll take a little space here to clear it off. So now if text guess text is less than 1, because that was our minimum range, or, because now we can check for more than one condition in a single line, or text guess text is greater than 100, then we have to put the then at the end, or it's not going to know what to do with it. Hit enter, automatically adds the end if. So now we're going to run the code if the text provided is actually a number, and then if it is a number, it's going to check to see if it's within the range that was given, and if it is within this range, then it's going to run this text. So now we've already checked to make sure that they haven't put any letters in the field, which would not be evaluated correctly, and they're also checking to make sure that you didn't put in any negative numbers, or 0, or 101, or anything outside of the range of 1 to 100. And now, assuming that all conditions are met, it's going to run this code here, and actually, okay, so actually this, what we're checking here is if it's outside of the range. So if it is outside of the range, and it's less than 1 or it's greater than 100, then we want to give them some sort of a warning. you remember, we are using the label response, to display any messages that we want the user to see. So we're going to change the text of the label to say, please guess within the range of 1 to 100. And then we want to bring up the text guess, and we're going to request focus on that again. Request focus, which just means that we're going to make sure that the cursor, that where you type in, is showing up in the guessed field. Now we can request focus for any field that we might have, and this is good if you have multiple fields. The reason for doing this is just so that the user does not have to click in the guessed field to submit their next guess. This automatically does it for them, so it's just kind of a nicety. You don't have to do it, but I like to do that so that there's less work for the user to do. It's a little more user friendly. So that's all we have to do if the number that they submit is outside of the range. Just tell them guess within this range and send them back to the text field to enter a different value. Now comes the situation where, okay, so if these conditions are true, show this. If they're not true, which means that they have guessed within the range, we're going to do else. So basically, if this is true, do this, and if it's not true, do this. So we're just going to do else here. And now this is where the logic comes in, where we're going to check to see if the number submitted is higher or lower than the random number that was generated earlier. So, all right, so now we're going to do more conditions. So again, we're going to do if, and now we're going to check text guess, text is less than our num, which is the random number that was generated. So it's less than that. We have to put then, hit enter, automatically puts the end if, which is great. So it's less than that. We want to clear out the response label, and you probably don't even need to do this since we're gonna put another. I think there was a reason I did this, but I'm gonna skip it for now. So I'm gonna put the label response dot text equals my number is higher. Okay. Because you guessed less than the random number, so it wants to let you know that the number it picked is higher than that. So we're going to tell them that it needs to be higher. And then we're going to increase the number of guesses. So number of guesses, which currently, to start with, equals 0. Number of guesses equals 0. So we're going to increase that by 1. So number of guesses equals number of guesses plus 1. So now number of guesses equals 1. Okay, because we're going to keep track of how many guesses it takes them to get the actual number. Now we want to send them back to the text box, text field, so we can type it in, or we can just copy that and paste it back down here. Now, and again, that's just so that they don't have to click in there themselves and whatever. So that just like I said, it's just a user-friendly thing to do. All right, so then I think that's it. We've done that. So now we're going to say, all right, so if it's less than the random number, that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to do an else again. Actually, we're going to do an else if, because we're doing another condition. Else if. Now we're going to check to see text guess dot text is greater than the random number. Then the end if is already there, so an else if can only exist within an if and if block. So now if the random number is higher than your guess, if your guess is higher than the number, it's going to put a response in here that text, we're going to change the text to number is lower. Okay, and then same thing, We're still going to increase the number of guesses, because a guess high or a guess low is still a guess. We'll increase the number of guesses, and then send them a request back to the text box yet again for another guess. And we have one last condition. So in this case, we're not checking for another condition, because we've already checked to see if the number guessed is less than the random number or it's greater than the random number. Now we need to, the only other condition is that it matched. So now we don't have to do an else if, but just an else, which means that if neither of the above combinations is true, then it must, then this is the default that we're going to give them. In this case, if it's not higher and it's not lower, then it must be equal. Because we've already filtered out whether the number is even within the range. So if it's within the range and it's not higher and it's not lower, then it must be equal. So we're going to assume that and let them know. So call up the label response, change the text to "you guessed my number," and we're also going to tell them how many tries it took them. So this, and to give them the number of tries that they've tried, we need to give them the value that is held in number of guesses, or num guesses. So to add that to this text that we've already got, we want to use the ampersand or Shift 7 on most people's keyboards, because that's going to give them this text, and this is outside of the quotes. The quotes is what the text you're going to show, but any variable you want to add, you need to not put that in quotes. So now we just want to put number of guesses, ampersand again, and now you use quotes because you're going to finish off the sentence. And then you want to put a space so that the number of guesses, the number, isn't right next to the text you're going to put in here. And you're going to put tries, exclamation point, and end parenthesis again. All right, so now you've put the successful response in there, and you also want to, now that the game is essentially over, you want to make the play again button visible. So now we got to set that to true. Now the play again button will now show up on the screen, and in addition to that, you then want to make sure that that button has focus. And again, this is just a user-friendly kind of thing. So we're going to do request focus. So that way, if they can either click on the button if they want, or they can actually press the enter button on the play again button, and that will also fire off the, where do we put it? The play again click event, which will run the start game function, which will come up here and reset everything and begin again. It also, like I said, it hides the play again button so that they can do it. And I'm pretty sure, oh, well, there is some other things that we can do, but I'm going to run this as is so you can see it working. And then I'll purposely put an error in so you can see there is actually some additional checks that we can do on the text that was put into the text box so you can show that we still have a little bit more to do. So we're going to run it. Okay, no errors over here, so that means we're good. So we're going to, all right, so guess a number between 1 and 100. I'm going to guess 50, and I'm going to press enter to start. And you can see, okay, the random number that it picked is lower, so it says my number is lower. And it automatically selected all the text in here so that all you have to do is type it again. So now I'm going to go lower, 25, enter. Nope, still lower. Oh, okay, now I know why I did that extra thing that I decided to skip it, so I'll tell you about that when we're done. So we're going to go lower again, and let's just go to 15, and enter. Still lower, and now I'm going to type 10, and now I'm going to hit guess, which is, boom, it was 10. So you guessed my number in 3 tries. So you can see it took, this is the value that was held in number of guesses, the number 3. And, oh, look at that, we didn't even put the correct label on the play again button. So now it just says text, but if we do click it, the button goes away and we begin again. So that's that. So there's a few things we need to clean up. So I don't remember if I told you this or not. I think I did. If you hover over the layout, which is the designer, and you hold down the control button, you can see that changes to a link, and click it. It's going to open up the designer itself. So again, the play button, we named it play button, but we didn't change the text of what actually displays on the button. So we want to put play again. again and put a question mark there and hit enter. And that's the text that will show up. So, okay, so that's done. And we can hide that. Yeah, okay, so let's just run this again real quick. So I'm going to guess 50. Guess. My number's lower, so I'm going to put 25. Guess. Still lower. Just 10, just in case it did that. Nope, let's see, it did pick a different number, but it's still lower, so I'm going to go down to 5. Guess. Number's higher. Okay, so let's try 7. Nope, higher again, so we're going to go 9. Now it's lower. Guess what? It's 8. So we're going to hit 8, and boom, there it is. You guessed my number in 6 tries, but now the text on the play again button does say play again. So, and if you notice, you can put a number in here if you want, and it is going to continue working, but the number hasn't changed. It's still, oh no, it was 8, sorry, 8, you guessed it again. Now you can keep doing this, and it's just going to, oh, I think I hit the play again button. Anyway, so that's that. So there was a couple, what did I want to show you? I wanted to show you, okay, right, so there's still a few cases where this is an error. So let's say I put some random letters in there and I hit guess. It does nothing. It doesn't change the response. It doesn't, nothing happens, which is good because you don't really want anything to happen there. But we would at least want to display something and let them know that, hey, that's not good. All right, so there's that. Well, let's cancel out of that. All right, so if it's, so back into submit guesses, because this is where pretty much all of our logic is. So you have this if statement, and you'll see that we've highlighted this if statement, and it highlights the block that it is associated to. So we click this one, it's going to show this if and this else. This is all part of the same block. If we click this if, it's going to show, it's going to automatically highlight all of this, which is great, so you can see where you need to make your changes. So I know it's here, and I don't have an else in this block because it is not highlighted, but I click this one, the else is highlighted. So here's the deal. So we're checking first to see if it is a number. And if it is a number, we're going to run all this extra code. If it's not a number, we're not telling them anything. We haven't told them this is not a number. So we're going to go to the end of that. We're going to add an else block here. And hit enter. And then we're going to run some other code. Now, if it is not a number, we're going to display something that tells them that. So in the label response text field, we're going to make that equal to must enter a valid number. Lost. Okay, enter there. Now we're going to clear out the text box. Again, this is just so that the user doesn't have to clear it out themselves. We're kind of doing some of the menial work for them. And again, this is not necessary. This is just to make the user experience a little bit easier. It's not frustrating to play your game. And then we also want to request focus in case it doesn't have it. Request focus. Okay, so now if we run it again and we put some random text in there, hit guess. Oh, you must enter a valid number. It doesn't like that. So okay, but we also didn't check to see if it's within our range here. So let's say I type in a -1, which is outside the range. Please guess within the range of 1 to 100. So I will put 1. Guess. Nope, number's higher. I can guess 100. Guess. Nope, my number's lower. I can guess 101, and it says, oh, please guess within the range. So anything less than 1 or greater than 100, as we have here, less than 1 or greater than 100, then it's going to say, please guess within the range. So that appears to be working. And if we put anything that is not a number, it doesn't even matter what it is, and press guess, it's like, you must enter a valid number. So the is number makes sure that the text provided is actually a number before it runs anything here. All right, so that essentially is it. I mean, you have a working program here. It's pretty user-friendly. It'll continue guessing a number for as long as you want to. It keeps track of your guesses and resets them when you start the game over again by play again, or when run it for the first time. I suppose the only other thing left to do, and certainly in the comments below, if you have any questions about what I've done here, if something wasn't clear, please ask the question, and I'll be glad to answer it as I'm able. I'm hoping to get to the point where I have so many people I just can't possibly answer everything, but as of right now, that's not going to happen. So I'll try to answer every question that was asked. I guess maybe I'm thinking of it now. It's possible that this text that I've done all of this might not even be very visible. That's my fault. I actually thought of this ahead of time, but didn't actually do it. So what I can do is this percentage here, and I'll do this in my ongoing videos. I'm going to change that to like 125%, 125%, and that'll make the text a bit bigger so you can actually see it. So I apologize for that. That's something I thought to do but forgot, as I just said. But one other thing that I think we can do is there's another section up here called Region Project Attributes, and I'll expand that. You can see it's the main form width of 600 and the main form width of 600. I mean height, width and height. So if I run this, it's basically a square. We got 600 pixels this way and 600 pixels that way, and obviously for this type of game, we got a lot of wasted space here. So what we can do is actually the height. Now the width is, let me run that again because I didn't really see what do we get for width. So yeah, we got plenty of space here. I'm not exactly sure. It looks maybe about halfway. So around 300, but let's make that 400. So we're going to change this to 400. I'm going to run that again just so you can see. So it's a lot thinner now, and we can even go less than that, maybe 300 or something. So let me go down to 300 just for the sake of argument. Look at my other program here and see what I did. I did 400 by 250, so let's just do that. I'm going to leave it at 300 just to see what it looks like. So these are the values of, now this is what your actual window is going to show up as opposed to the designer, which has this big gray area. And actually, if you go into variants, you'll see this is 600 by 600. Even if you change this here, it doesn't matter. It's your code is going to determine what the dimensions of your window are. So let's run this one. So that's a little tight, so maybe we want to go a little bit more. Looks like we have plenty of room for the play again button when that becomes visible. So let's expand this out a little bit more. Maybe 350 by, let's try 200, just curious. I'll run that. Now let's play the game. Still probably a little too much, but that's okay. So we'll do 50, enter, my number's lower, cut that in half, go 20. Number still lower, cut that in half, it's around 13 or so, but I'll just go to 15. Hit enter, my number's higher, okay, good. So we'll go to 25, we did 25, let's go to 20. Now it's lower than that, so it's between 15 and 20, so I'm going to go approximately halfway at 17. Nope, it's lower than that, so the only other number it could be is 16, and bang, there it is. Guess my number in 5 tries, and the play again button has plenty of space underneath, so that's okay. Maybe tighten up the width a little bit. What I got at 350, so let me go to 325. And again, this is just all aesthetics. This is totally up to you whether you want to change it or not. I'll leave it at 600 by 600, which I believe is the default. So run it again. And that's a little close. I mean, you can figure out the math if you want to figure out, how close it is to these here. And you can match it in the designer as well, just for the sake of, so if you want to do a new variant. And I suggest not playing around with this too much because you can actually have more than one variant and you can have different layouts on each variant. And we'll get into that in some other projects. But let's say, what do we do? 325 by, forget actually. We did 325 by 200. So I'll do 200 there. So you can make your designer, kind of scroll and zoom in there. You can make your designer the same size as the window that you're using, just to kind of get a look and feel for how things fit here. So maybe we want to just kind of, in the designer, we can make this, and there goes my phone, so I'm going to pause it. And I'm back, sorry for the disruption there. So kind of made this fit a little bit closer to the window, and this is probably, make that fit a little bit more too. Okay, again, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so you don't have to do any of this. But I like to do it. So any changes you make here, you can do file save, or if you can see the Control S, which is pretty standard, you can actually do Control S on your keyboard and it will do the same thing. And just remember that if you have different layouts, see, you can kind of see that the layout is slightly different. You can't see because it's bouncing like that, but anywho, where's the code? There's the code. So now I've adjusted it, and actually it may not use that layout because I think it might be different. So if I do this now, are we gonna run? Where we go? Oh, I think we're already running. I apologize. I'm having distraction after distraction. People coming in, trying to talk to me, phones ringing. So I do apologize for all the distractions. I'm hoping to get this all cleaned up as I do more projects in the future. But anyway, so let's run this again. And okay, so there you go. It looks a bit tighter. It's not perfect still, but I don't know if we need to bother. Okay, now we're going higher. That's good. 75, higher than that. 80, higher. 90, higher. 95. High, what? 99. Oh, perfect. There you go. And play button. Again, I could probably center that up a little bit better, whatever, but you get the idea. So that is pretty much guess my number. And like I had said earlier, if there's anything that you didn't understand or you'd like me to implement into this project or any future ones I do, please comment below. And I have to do the standard thing where I ask if you like what you see, consider subscribing to my channel, and even giving the video a thumbs up or thumbs down if you didn't like it. That's okay too. There's a saying you could say, all attention is good attention. Not necessarily, but nonetheless, if you feel so inclined to subscribe and to give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And I hate to mention this at this point, I do have a Patreon page. I am going to put the link in there. It's early. I just made it. I have nobody on it at this moment, at the time of this recording. But again, if you feel so inclined, I sure would absolutely appreciate that. But absolutely no obligation, of course. So that is going to do it for this video, I think. I think I pretty much covered everything in this one. And hopefully we'll continue these and people will get to learn the concepts involved in programming through BASIC, which applies to all languages. Again, this is Joe Austin with Potentials Unleashed, and I thank you very much.